to start by asking you both how you met Jimi.
I was trying to think of that the other day. Do you remember? I mean, I know we went over to Willa Kinsey.
Yeah.
Is that where we met him at that barbecue?
Yeah, 1996, and I think it was June or
Summer,
something like. It was summer.
Yeah, for sure.
Because Paco was, it was 6 months old.
That's right.
And we met Jimi, and we were sitting on the. I know we were sitting outside.
Is it down below that tasting room on that wall there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was the first time we met him, and he was the assistant winemaker at Willa Kinsey.
Is that dorky-looking guy over there?
No, we sat with him, and he was the new assistant winemaker, and I was the assistant winemaker over at Chehalem, and you were the assistant over at Archery Summit at the time, and we sort of just managed to sit next to him at a certain time and started talking and kept talking and kept talking and sort of went into the evening with like, wow, he's pretty cool.
Love it first sight.
Was Bojana there? I can't remember if Bojana was there.
Was there. I think it was just Jimi.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember, that was, Willa Kinsey had just started.
It was their opening
brand new.
party.
It was their opening party. Laurent was the winemaker. I don't even know. I mean, you got invited because of Harry, and I guess I got invited because of Gary. I had just gotten up to Oregon in late '95. You had taken a break.
Or maybe you got invited because of Harry.
Maybe I invited you. Or you invited me, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we just started dating in spring of '96. And you had just started Chehalem in '96, and I had started Archery Summit in '95.
Yeah.
So we were all relatively, it was all very new at that point. And Jimi very quickly became a new, very close friend.
So tell us about Jimi. What was he like?
Then, here, you can start on that.
No, because there are, never mind. I think there's a lot of people that would say Jimi was very outgoing, but he was in a certain way. He was also pretty shy in some ways. He was extremely loyal. He had very close friends that he kept in contact with and talked to. He loved to talk and was emotional. When I say emotional,
I wouldn't say shy. I don't think Jimi was shy,
but a little shy actually. But when I say emotional, I don't think he was like, he wasn't like weeping all the time, but he felt his emotions very deeply and loved his friends and life. There was also the flip side where he could be dark, and what do we say? He used to believe he was a Jewish guy from Eastern Europe, but he grew up in Beaverton.
Yeah.
And so, the music and a lot of music that we liked in common and whatnot could veer to the dark, but that didn't mean he was depressed or anything like that. I just think he felt emotions very deeply.
Yeah. I mean, I think sensitive is a word that would sort of wrap that up.
Used to call him something else, but
I don't remember that. But anyway, I think it was great. That's why Jimi was able to be such a great friend to both of us. We had a relationship with Jimi as our friend, as a group, but I think individually we also had our own relationships with Jimi, which was great, even though we all met together and but he could still be one of my friends that I could chat with about a million things, and then he could still
come out and
shoot guns.
Well, no, you should say shoot guns and then drink, not the other way around. Or we'd go hunt mushrooms, or he was my best friend. And our best friend. Yeah. And he loved life, and he was also someone I felt that had one foot firmly planted in, I don't want to say the old world, and I don't mean the old world like Europe or whatnot, but in tradition and in things that have the long tradition both of winemaking in this state and just of life, but also one foot in the new world or looking forward. You know, he loved to experiment in his winemaking. He loved to try new things. You know, I mean, he was, one of the things that I remember about Jimi is him going to Georgia, not the state, but the country of it. And I don't know if you've talked to Lee about this, but maybe you went with Lee. And, you know, Georgia's one of these old places, but at the same time, he's out there going to Georgia, which at that time was considered sort of cutting edge and crazy and out there. So, and he was definitely fun. I mean, we had a lot of wild times together, for sure.
And you talked about emotions close to the kind of out there. I know he was passionate about things. Tell me a little bit about some of the things he was passionate about.
I mean, I think about his friends. I think about food.
Sex.
I wouldn't know, but...
I wouldn't either, but just the conversations, right? Life.
Yeah, life. He loved to be with his friends. He loved to eat and drink with his friends. He loved to, you know...
Winemaking.
Have fun, be larger than... It's not even larger than life. He just wanted to enjoy people. I mean...
We're talking about
right,
me now,
reflecting...
it's starting to pour.
Yeah, reflecting back, you know, he made sure to make the most out of the times that you had together.
Yeah, you know,
I mean, it wasn't mamby-pamby of just like, oh, okay, we do this and whatever, you know, everything. We always, not we always had fun, but, you know, Jimi was built to enjoy the things he was doing fully.
Yeah, I mean, and I think as Cheryl said, not all the times were good. You know, there were times that were extremely low points, whether it was in the relationship, a relationship he was in, our relationship, the relationship to work. You know, there were definitely trying times, and he felt those deeply, and we helped each other get through those. But he was someone, certainly on my side, and I know on Cheryl's side, that would help carry that burden, and we were that to him as well. So, you know, I think when you ask what he was passionate about, I can't, you know, I know this sounds like a trite answer, but I keep coming back to life. You know, but life for him and for us encompassed a lot of things. It encompassed family, it encompassed eating, drinking, it encompassed winemaking, profession, relationships, you know, something as simple as going mushroom hunting to other times talking about how we're going to change the world. So, you know, maybe emotional is not the right word, but passionate is a better word.
But, you know, we were peers. We were kids, essentially. How old were we? No, we were 25, 26. Jimi was at a different place. Consider he was married, he had a child, and he had really jumped in a few years before we did. We were just dating and sort of the same place professionally, and so I think we had the personal relationship and that whole professional track as well. And he was always a good person to bounce things off of, like, okay, what do you think? Are we doing the right thing? And he was the same way. Are we doing, like, what should I expect here? And so it was one of those great friends that you meet at a different point in your life where you're sort of starting to fire on all cylinders. You know what you want to do, and you can sort of, you're still young and you still have tons of energy, but you're trying to figure out, like, what's the end goal? Like, how do I enjoy this? So he was always a good model of, you know, you're looking forward, but you're also really digging in and having like, enjoying everything when you're there. And we were just saying this the other day, you know, right? Time just goes by in a blip.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait, Jimi was 37? Seriously? Like,
in 2004.
We're like, that was really young. Now, you know, when we're 10 years, he was always the older guy by a few years. And, you know, us being 10 years older than Jimi was when he died is like, it just funny reflecting on who you were there, who you were back then, and where he would have been. And the things we missed, but the great times we had anyway.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about the wine industry that Jimi got into as you guys were getting into it at the same time. Tell us a little bit about what it looked like as you guys were getting into it together.
You mean Brooks?
Just the Oregon wine industry in general, yeah.
Oh, back then in '96? Man, I mean, I think it was beyond the pioneering stage, obviously. I mean, Oregon, while not set, was a known entity on the wine scene, but it was still small. I mean, we all, especially in the northern Willamette, small and concentrated, we all knew each other. You know, I think Pat Dudley always says that at one point you could fit everybody into, you know, a bedroom in the wine industry. At that point you could fit everybody into I wouldn't say a dining room, but certainly
This conference room.
And so we all knew each other. And I think part of that is too, most of us lived out here, so we socialized together, we saw each other all the time.
Or we socialized at that point with no one, and so we were looking for other, like, oh, wow, there are other younger people in this industry.
But I mean, those are the people, living in McMinnville, or we lived in Dundee for a time. I mean, the wine industry at that time really sort of kept to itself, for good or for bad, and so those are the people that you saw all the time, and also for good and for more challenging.
But
I hate to sound like the old guy, but I'm getting there. But things were simpler, or at least seemed to be simpler back then, both in our lives and in the industry. The industry's more than doubled in size and volume, way more than quadrupled in number of wineries. You walk in, Cheryl and I walk into a room now, and for lots of reasons, we may not know people. It's amazing that now the symposium, which used to be, when we first started going, Grape Day at a room in OSU, is now at the Oregon Convention Center. So, I mean, that's basically the two ways to compare the industry.
Yeah. Well, also in '96, we were still transitioning, I think, out of a lot of owner-operated organizations. And so there were a lot of small wineries. It was the owner, and maybe there was someone else helping them out until about that time. There were more official assistant winemakers, and the next person.
Winemakers too, yeah.
Yeah, and winemakers that weren't owners. So you had the Willikinzie starting, and you had Archery Summit just ramping up, and
Domaine Serene was ramping up back then. DDO,
DDO
had been founded, but
in '88, but
you started to see some money at that time really start coming into the industry. That was the sort of start of getting some well-invested, some capital coming in.
Well, yeah, and I would say, like on the people side, you have that second-tier group that are coming in young and want to be winemakers. And I think prior to that, that was still happening, but once these bigger wineries were on the scene, you had this next level of peers, and they weren't just people who came in saying, okay, I'm going to make wine, and I was a doctor, and I used to, be in high tech or whatever. So that group, it was small enough, like you said, we were able to all get to know each other. Whereas now I might open the Willamette Valley map, and 3/4 of the wineries I've never seen before. Right. So
I felt it fairly acutely working for Archery Summit. One of the first wineries to come in from out of state, from another established winery. DDO was one, but Archery Summit coming in from a fairly established California winery, and it wasn't always easy. And I think Archery Summit was built for, I don't know, 9-10 million or something like that, which we used to think was like oh my God. And now, you can see someone spending 9 or 10 million here in a winery as a small winery. And it was, I think Oregon had received international recognition at that point, but not really the spotlight. And for me, it was sort of the dawning of that spotlight to get real marketing dollars in here, to get people with a longer reach. And that wave is still cresting, and with Jackson Family coming in, with other folks coming in. I think for me, that wave hasn't crashed. We're going to continue to see acquisitions, Foley and whomever else, that wave is still, I think, building for Oregon.
So tell me a little bit about the impact of Brooks Winery under Jimi. Once Jimi started it through his death, tell me a little bit about the impact it made.
In the community or outside?
However you see it.
I mean, the starting of Brooks Winery was like, I don't know, sort of like the dream we all had. Oh, we're going to start making, we're going to have our own brand. It's going to look like this. So the starting of Brooks was...
Was that 98 was his first vintage? Yeah. I think we still have some Riesling from that vintage.
Yeah. Again, he kicked it off a little earlier than we did. We always talked about it and started in 2001. But I think... I don't know. You might have a better answer to this question. I don't really know. It was, Jimi paved the way, or showed us the way probably a little bit, in that way that he was able to get his shit together and put together his own brand while he was still working for other people. And yeah, I mean, that's a pretty big thing when you're a young guy with new baby and just coming back into town and trying to establish yourself. So it gave hope to, we all can do something like this. I think he was one of the first at that time, again, in our sort of group of people that did that. Everybody wanted to, but that was a cool thing to do. And Riesling was not something everybody thought they wanted to start with. It was something we all talked about, and we love Riesling and it's great. But still now, Riesling is not a hard sell, but you still have the whole American, oh, that's sweet, isn't it? I mean, what are we, 20 years later, and it's still an explanation every time. So yeah, I mean, the growth since then, that's crazy. Janie's taken it to an entirely different level.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that Jimi, more than Brooks, had an impact on the community. I felt that the group, within the group of us, it was almost inevitable that we were going to start wineries. It was just a matter of when and how. So I feel around that time, that sort of late 90s, early 2000 time was sort of it would be interesting to take a look back and see how many small wineries just got started at that point. But I felt like there was a big mushrooming of all of our group about our age and whatnot. And it was still possible, in Oregon at that time to buy some land, negotiate grapes. It was still possible to get something done. I think that's getting less and less possible, certainly buying land. But we certainly exchanged ideas. We started a biodynamic class together. We were there, at the start of what I think was the biodynamic community, except for maybe a couple of wineries before, but the true biodynamic community. And so I think Jimi himself had a bigger impact than Brooks at that time. Brooks was just getting going. We were all just getting going. I mean, Jimi, we helped him, he helped us, we got him distribution, he got us distribution. So it was that, we loaned, I remember one time Jimi loaned Bill, our partner, his army truck so we could load two 2-ton tanks. Bill and Deb's winery, Hatcher, was down below by their house down this big driveway, and he parked the army truck up above the house, and they racked the wine into the 2-ton tanks sitting on the back of the army truck and then back down into his garage.
I don't remember that.
We got pictures of that. And Jimi loaned us the army truck we bought vines from Mom Tazi to plant our vineyard, and he loaned us the truck to go back and forth and helped us plant. And we used to walk around the winery that was Brooks. That was our first little A to Z winery, which was Hidden Springs, and Jimi and I and Cheryl would go and talk about how it'd be cool to expand and bring the both wineries together. And so, I don't know if Jimi would have taken Brooks as far as Janie has, no, I shouldn't say that, in the same direction, because they're both unique, but the foundation was the same, and it's nice to have Chris there as well and to carry that forward. No one ever knows. I mean, I don't know, Cheryl doesn't, no one knows. But certainly at that time, I think Jimi himself had a more outsized impact on the community. because of the nature, because of what he did and his lust for life, as opposed to really Brooks per se.
Yeah.
I mean, is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. And I think Jimi, I mean, as much as Jimi was about wine, he was about the way it integrated with people and the community and eating and drinking. So Jimi could have been, he could have been doing something else. And to your point, like, it wouldn't have looked the same. Jimi probably would have gotten fired up about something else along the way and been like, oh, that's great, and we still have Brooks, but now we're doing this
So who
too.
knows?
So who knows? But
Who
I
knows?
think it was, more his way of doing things that maybe more impact than
Yeah, and even-
the winery itself.
Yeah. And across the United States, I mean, not just the local community, but the wine community writ large. I think you were right at one point. Not at one point, but at one point you made was totally spot on, which was the Riesling. I do think Brooks had an outsized impact with Riesling. I mean, Cheryl was making Riesling.
Yeah.
Brooks was making Riesling. Actually, I think Jimi bought some grapes from Harry, didn't he, at one point?
Yeah.
But he was, as right now we sort of see the Chardonnay industry taking off in Oregon with not a few, but more and more serious people. I think Brooks certainly played a large role in that nucleus of that seed for planting a renewed interest in serious Riesling in Oregon, which has had a bumpy ride, but certainly Jimi was there at the foundation. He's friends with Ernie Lawson. It was something that was important to him. I think that's where the impact of Brooks was larger than the case amount, and certainly continues to this day.
I think, in retrospect, I think at Chehalem, we were probably one of, I shouldn't say this, it's being filmed, but we were one of the few people that were serious about Riesling at the time.
Yeah, there's
I
Argyle.
forgot,
Erath made some nice Rieslings.
Argyle probably doesn't even make Riesling anymore.
Probably not. Chehalem and Brooks are the ones that I'm sure there are other people. No, Elk Cove made some Riesling.
Yeah.
Right.
But serious about making Riesling from different vineyards and, exploring what that could be in Oregon. So different sites.
Yeah. I don't want to call Jimi the grandfather. Maybe the godfather's a better description than grandfather. One of the godfathers of Oregon Riesling, for sure. Yeah.
So let's talk about Jimi's death. Let's kind of talk about days leading up to what you remember of, and then the actual event of his death. What you remember of it. I know this is not the easiest question. I know, but like, what happened when you heard the news, and what happened next?
Well,
this is so, it's tough.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We'd been out the night before for dinner. And,
actually.
we had plans the next day.
Well, but we should tell a story the night before. I think that's important.
Well, you can, I mean, it was a group of friends, and we went out.
Well, you went to go pick up Pip from the airport.
Oh, I forgot. It was our new intern coming in for our second vintage up at the Hidden Springs place. And then we wanted to have a pre-harvest dinner or just catch up with friends.
At Tina's.
Yeah.
I think it was like 8 of us, maybe.
I don't know.
And
I remember Josh was there.
Jimi had picked me up in his Defender in McMinnville. We were living in McMinnville at the time, and Jimi picked me up because Cheryl had gone to the airport to pick up Pip, and we were meeting at Tina's that night. So Jimi picked me up, drove to Tina's, and he had mentioned that he wasn't feeling good. He'd come back from Mexico with Dawn, where he'd gotten some spider bite or something, but he said he was still, not feeling 100%. I mean, I so clearly remember that drive, and part of it was sort of a warm time, and the Defender didn't have air conditioning, so we had to slide open those little frickin' windows, and things were rattling around. And we talked about skin contact whites and his trip to Georgia, and it was September 3rd, so talking about the vintage coming up and what things were looking like, and then we all got to Tina's and had a great dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a fun dinner.
It was a fun dinner.
Yeah.
I was pregnant and we had a 2-year-old, so it was always like a big deal to actually get out of the house, or a year and a half or something.
And, yeah, not a sober driver, so it was a fun dinner.
Yeah, it's probably great. I remember Jimmy not feeling well because I'm like, you don't feel well, I don't feel well, you know.
And he was sweating a lot.
Yeah.
But he always sort of sweat a
No,
lot.
but he
was
wasn't
sweating.
like.
Yeah, he was not.
We sat next to each other, and yeah, he was just like, I'm not feeling good.
Yeah.
And so we had plans for the next morning. Jimmy had convinced, so we had
Jimmy.
cows, and then we moved the cows to Bill and Deb's pasture, and then we decided we were going to start raising cows. So we had
And going to the cow
a
business.
bull coming in the next day, and Jimmy had a heifer coming in. And
We bought these cows, these Scotch Highland cows with big horns and long hair. They look like Wookiees, sort of.
so
And we
anyway,
bought them together, yeah.
so I arranged to have the cows come in, and we were going to meet at the pasture, and we were going to deliver the cows, do the whole thing in the morning. And then the cows were maybe later in the morning. I can't remember
No, the
what. Cows
were on time, but Jimmy wasn't.
I don't know if he was supposed to meet us there.
Yeah,
I can't
he was,
even
for
remember
sure.
because
Yeah.
what I remember is later being pissed that he left me with fucking
Us.
with a bull and cows. That all of a sudden I'm like, I'm pregnant, I have cows, and now I have a whole breeding farm here, and no one really who's nearly as excited about it. And our cow business, as you can see, we have no cows here. Didn't go well. Bill and Deb bore the brunt of that. But yeah, we were at our house in McMinnville, and we grabbed some breakfast or something, and we're trying to connect with
We
him.
called him. That was like, just cell phones were just getting going.
You called, and
Left messages.
no, you called, and Dawn picked up the phone. And
It's actually Tad that picked up the phone.
oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know that. Okay.
And that was in the vineyard, right? Or in the pasture. Like we'd gone to get the cows and we were pulling the cows out, which
No.
wasn't easy.
We were sitting at the breakfast
after?
table in McMinnville, sitting at the breakfast table, and Sam was on the phone. I was like, you hear the other side of the conversation, and it was only like 9:30 in the morning or something like that. That's why I was like, maybe the cows came later in the afternoon, because I can't seem to put it all together of that day.
No, we did the cows early in the morning, and that's why we got sort of annoyed at Jimmy, because he didn't show up and wasn't answering his calls. We've been out for dinner and not super late. But we're like, where the hell's Jimmy? God damn it, he's supposed to be here helping us.
Funny, I remember it totally differently. Anyway, yeah, we were at the table, and then I was like, what? Wait, what? And I gathered, figured out what had happened, even though we didn't really know what had happened. And didn't we wrap up pretty quickly and go down to the house? I feel like
Yeah.
we just,
Yeah.
The
The ambulance had come.
yeah, so we had just moved into McMinnville on September 1st.
No, we'd moved in a little bit earlier, because remember we had
August?
Jimmy over a couple of times. I fell asleep
First?
upstairs reading to the kids one night, and Jimmy was still
No,
downstairs.
I remember we moved the day. No, we had just moved
Might
in.
have been August 1st.
Anyway, we just moved in to McMinnville. It had been under a month since we had been there, and we kept saying, well, not super excited to be in McMinnville, but at least we have Jimmy that we could walk to. And so we had done that a few times. And anyway, we walked down to the house, and then you can tell that story. I mean, walked down to the house, and Tad was there, and
Dawn was there.
I can't remember, yeah. People were there.
Not many.
And that was the first day we met Janie.
She came in that night.
Yeah. because we had been sort of waiting around or all day. We were trying to like just figure out what the hell we could do, and we're all sort of, you know, zombies bumping into each other a little bit, like, is this real? Wait, what just happened? And wait, what happened? You know, it was just that sort of surreal feeling where you're, yeah, anyway.
I remember I had to call Mo, his boss, Jimmy's boss at the time, and tell him. And we were buying fruit from Momtazi at the time, and somehow I got nominated. Call Mo, and I remember that call very clearly. And he, Mo pretty much collapsed when I told him the news, and someone else grabbed the phone. I think it was his wife or one of his kids, and he at first thought I was like playing a prank on him, and then got that through. And yeah, I mean, it was a tough few days. We spent a lot of time over the next few days at Jimmy's house with a lot of friends.
Yeah.
Just talking and reminiscing, and we said goodbye to Jimmy when he was cremated. And I remember sitting there, and it was a few of us. You know, Tad was there, Dawn, Lee, me. Were you there? Or I don't know if you wanted to. And we did a shot of vodka and have a little cup, metal cup that we went with Jimmy. And then the service, fire dancers outside his house, you know, everybody rallying and creating a big meal. And then, of course, the conversations talking to Janie about how we would keep Brooks moving, at least for a year. You know, we were so close to harvest.
Yeah, that's true.
We're 2 weeks, 3 weeks away at most.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So we were up at the little
winery.
And
The
I
service
had
was
just left Cheryl. So I called Harry because I had worked with Harry first, you know.
Through 03.
Harry.
Right?
Yeah.
Through 03.
Yeah, through 03, but, you know, working with Harry, that was my first assistant winemaker job, and Harry and I were close, and Harry had met Jimmy about the same time and was also close to him, but partially, you know, because he was our good friend, and Jimmy was around and was just sort of part of, you know, it was very comfortable at Chehalem. And yeah, so I called Harry that morning as well. And you're right, all those plans about what were we gonna do? Can you do a little bit of that? How are we gonna, you know, I don't know how many days it took before you start shaking out like some details, but it was really you and Tad maybe originally, and Janie just trying to really hash out the winemaking, like
that was like the first day or the second
first
day.
Little group, and then it kept growing.
I remember having a meeting. We were somewhere. We all sat around a big table. It was at a winery or something, and we all discussed, you know, who's doing what. Here's the fruit. Louisa, you know, Josh.
Oh yeah.
Harry, you, me, Tad. The other thing I remember a lot of things from those days.
Or we don't.
Chris John punching me and having like a huge bruise, cleaning out Jimmy's house, and finding some things Jimmy wouldn't have wanted us to find, but cleaning out his house, driving around McMinnville crying. But I remember this one time, you know, I think we had met, so we did an IP&C dinner, remember that year?
Yeah.
With Jimmy up on Red
Ridge Farms.
And Janie did not come, right?
No, she didn't. Nobody actually came.
Yeah, we ended up having a great dinner by ourselves. And Jason was the chef, remember?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, who owns Ned Led now.
Yeah, so Jason French was Jimmy's intern the year before at Momtazi. And so Jason had started at Clark Lewis and was our chef at this joint Brooks A to Z dinner because
Francis Tannahill, Hatcher,
yeah, we were still, that whole thing was in its infancy, and so
It was July.
yeah, so we were still trying to figure out, is A to Z the right match for an IPNC dinner, or is it Francis Tannahill, who nobody's heard of, or is it Brooks, who nobody's really heard of, or Hatcher, or whatever. So we just had a great time. We had a small group of people, and it was a last-minute dinner, and we finally ended up just saying, whatever, it's on us. We're just having a good time. So we were up there with Jason and Jimi.
That was fun.
I know, CJ was there taking
That's right, CJ
photos.
was there.
There are probably some great photos of that somewhere. I just don't know where they are.
We used to
Anyway.
spend almost every New Year's or Christmas Eve or Thanksgiving, 4th of July. We always had a pre-harvest party where most of the time we had it up at our house in Dundee, our farm, where we'd roast an animal. And I remember, Pascal all in, like about this big or something, all in camouflage, rolling around in the dirt while we were cooking a goat. So there was a lot of celebrations with Jimi. But the other thing I remember right after his death is, Jimi had this love of fire dancers and collected these, interesting folks around him. And he had a 4th of July party that year. And he used to do a pre-IPNC or a post-IPNC party where he'd have fire dancers.
Paella party.
Paella party with Ernie Lowson. So we got these fire dancers and parked the truck outside his house. And Janie was really getting just to know all of us. I think his service was not a service, but his celebration was a week, 10 days after he passed, something.
No idea.
Something like that. And I don't think I had ever met Janie.
I had met Janie
Maybe at his mom's funeral
once.
or his dad's funeral,
I'd met Janie a few times, I guess. Yeah.
but not really we didn't know her.
No.
And I remember sitting up there with her, the streets filled with people, fire dancers. There must have been, how many people at a celebration and then went down to the house?
I don't know.
100, 200, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I remember just looking at her and saying, do you understand now what Jimi meant to this community? And she said, yeah. And, after that, she grabbed that legacy and just ran with it, which is pretty amazing. I have to take my hat off to her. She could have done a whole lot of things. She didn't have to do this.
Yeah. It's
but
pretty
she did.
incredible.
And not only has she taken, being from California, she's taken ownership of it and his legacy, which is, and not only the legacy of just creating a winery, just creating a business, but creating a piece of the community, being part of that community, which for me, there's a lot of wineries in the world, and not a lot of biodynamic wineries, but there's several. And for me is what I appreciate and admire more than creating a business and a winery is how much she's become a part of this community that she did not, I'm sure she'll admit this, she did not know when Jimi died. It was not her community, and now it is.
Yeah.
And it's become less now that she's part of the community because she was Jimi's sister. She's become part of the community because she's Janie. So.
Yeah. Agreed. She's created something pretty incredible in a different way, maybe, than Jimi would have, but in her own, amazing way that's, is pretty incredible that possibly all of this, inspired Janie to reach to a place that she wouldn't have and had all these experiences and sort of moved her to a really different place in her life.
Yeah, it's true. We saw Pascal the other day. It's also neat to see him, from, someone that we knew at 6 months old and playing in the dirt and part of our lives growing up, to see him now, as a man. And we went to Jason's house. It's amazing to see all these people that are still together. We went to Jason's house for dinner. When was that? Was it post-harvest? I can't even remember. It was rainy out. Must have been post-harvest, right?
Yeah.
And there's this picture of our son, Theo, who was born in 2002. So just when Jimmy was first person to see Theo after he was born, the first person to come and visit us. Jimmy was there when we bottled our first vintage of A to Z as well. But had this picture of Pascal sort of kneeling down, talking to Theo, who's sitting in a chair. I wish Jimmy could have seen that. And in some ways, he is. But I look at that picture and it's just part of Jimmy's there. So it's part of Jimmy's at every dinner that we get together and raise a glass to him. If not physically, then certainly spiritually. But that hit home last year for me to see those.
Yeah, to see Paco.
And
Paco all grown
Theo,
up. Well, and
Oliver.
I was, like I said, I was pregnant when Jimmy died, and so our son Ollie was born on Pascal's birthday, which I always thought was pretty cool.
Epiphany, right? Tomorrow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
tomorrow.
His middle name is James.
Well, his name's
Yeah.
It's James Francis actually, which is two of Jimmy's names. So.
And he's
Anyway.
running around. That's
Yeah.
that was pretty neat.
So let's talk about the 2000, when you guys did decide you were going to help keep Brooks going, and you met with Janie, and what were you hoping to accomplish with that 2004 vintage? What was it, or at least your part of Brooks, what were you hoping to accomplish with it?
I think at that point it was just do what we thought
Was right.
was right and what Jimmy would do, do what we thought would make the best wines. I mean, right, we're heading into harvest and just sort of not knowing which way is up. And I think it was, from all I can recall, is it was trying to do the best we could do, something we thought Jimmy would also be proud of and love. I don't know. I can't even remember. We liked the same style wines. We
Drank a lot of wine.
we loved a lot of the same things. So at that point, I think it was trying to do, like, our best would be something Jimmy would like. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't really remember that harvest all that well, frankly. I remember everything leading up to it, but
Sort of a blur. It's a long time ago.
a long time ago. I mean, I remember the weather and I remember the wines and the building, but really, I don't know if there was much of a plan other than let's make wine and get through this year and then reassess and see where we are.
I'm sure we did we all had that, okay, let's do it the way. How did Jimmy do that again? And that's sort of where Chris segued into some of that stuff, because we knew what Jimmy did with Momtazi, but was that always what he did with his own brand? And, you had enough, late night conversations about where everything was going and where you wanted to reach to and styles and what you wanted to try in the next few years, what was important. So I think, Jimmy would appreciate in any way stretching yourself. And
the biodynamic thing was important, and we started that class together and obviously spent a lot of time together. I just remember his dog Nefrushka.
Nefrushka.
Nef,
Yeah.
Nef. Jimmy and Cheryl and I spent New Year's Eve 1999 to 2000 that one day, together, and we had a big dinner down at Tina's, and then went back up to our house, which is a small little farmhouse in Dundee, a few blocks away, and he spent the night, and we woke up in the morning, and do you remember we had cleared the land, and we hung all these, not all these, but a few gas cans on them, and we're taking turns firing a shotgun, trying to set these huge wood piles on fire. There's this great picture of Jimmy holding a shotgun with this sort of woolen vest, holding a schooner of rosé champagne, and I was just remembering that. And his dog, he's like, "Well, I've left my dog at home for, however many hours." But yeah, we had, and Jimmy cooked at our wedding as well. It was we didn't have any best men or groomsmen or bridesmaids, I guess they're called. But Jimi and Lee cooked, and Jimi acted as our witness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the days after his death, and as you were starting this, did you think Brooks Winery would still be here in 2018?
Probably not. I don't know. I think pretty quickly Janie, she set her intention down pretty firmly. I guess not knowing Janie well at that time, didn't know how determined she really was, and how passionate she was going to become about her business and his legacy and Pascal. And no, probably not in the way that it is now. Which is just makes it even more amazing that she was able to, grab that brand, grab everything and bring it to where it is now.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go on.
The hard part about having a wine business is not really making the wine. You make the wine. That's in some ways can be a craft. There's a little bit of art to it and whatnot, but it's selling the wine and continuing the actually business part of it. And had you asked me the 2 weeks after his wedding at Brooks would probably around, I would have probably said I had no idea, but probably not. And I know certainly those early years were tough on Janie with the travel, and I'm sure she and I had some discussions. There were doubts, and can I do this? Do people take me seriously? Do they view me just like the Dits from California or whatnot? So that I certainly think that, but those doubts, it must have been not much more than a year or two after that those doubts, I don't know, what do you think, were erased. The doubts if the winery would continue. The question, of course, with any winery is, will it succeed? How big is it going to get? Where is it going to go? But not, she was pretty soon after.
Oh yeah, this
is what I am going to do.
Right, we couldn't visualize how it might look, but Janie was all in. Maybe she didn't know how all in it was all going to become, but she was all in, and it's going to be like this. And then it was, 6 months later, wait, it's going to be like this? What's this? Like, the more you know, the more you don't know. Oh, hell. Okay, I can do this. And Janie is tough, and she is determined, and she too is passionate about what she wants. So it's funny, right? It was always Janie and Jimi were so different. That's the way it was always described. And I remember seeing Janie walking down the street in McMinnville, and I said something to Lee, like, oh, I saw the two of them. And he said, oh, the Beauty and the Beast. And so that was always, it was like Janie, Jimmy's beautiful sister, who
successful business
very
person.
Successful, and she does things like this, and she gets things done, and she marks it off of her list, and she doesn't want to be bothered with some of the dark ruminations that Jimi has. And so from that sibling thing, I think sometimes as siblings you play these opposite roles, and I've never asked Janie directly, but she's probably taken on a lot of, that passion that Jimi had, and been able to, like I said earlier, reach to a place that maybe she wouldn't have if this whole thing hadn't been turned upside down.
I think this goes without saying, is Janie's gone through, in that period in her life, what a change. What hardship. Her brother, her mother, her father, in a very short amount of time. And I think that this is, I don't know, I've never asked her this, so I'm making a big leap and a big assumption, but I can't imagine that Brooks is not, in some ways, part of a legacy or an extension of that family, with the name and also being able to hand that down to Pascal at some point. And if the people can't be around, then something that, frankly, for all of us is almost just as good as a family, a vineyard, a community,
Yeah.
to be able to nurture that and to grow that is, I would imagine for Janie, it's not only a passion, but a drive. And it's something that really, connects her back to her family up here in Oregon. And it's pretty special. Yeah, that period of her life was unimaginably difficult. And to see something that's so amazing and beautiful grow out of that is pretty cool, pretty awe-inspiring.
Yeah. They lost both their parents in a really short period of time. And we knew Jimi throughout all of that, but never knew Janie. So I think that was interesting about how, trying to continue to build that side of the family for Pascal and for her kids. It's probably important along the way.
It'll be
I don't
interesting
know,
to see
I
if
never asked.
No, sorry.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see if Pascal takes it on. I don't know. It
Yeah,
seems like
but
he has every intention to, but life is life. And
Yeah. He doesn't, yeah.
that can be tough, right? I
It
know.
shouldn't be he doesn't have to, yeah.
Yeah.
If he wants to, that's great. Anyway.
Yeah.
You guys have shared a lot of great memories of Jimi, which is wonderful. Do you have a particular favorite memory of Jimi, or either a moment or just something about him that you remember most fondly or favorite?
No, probably not.
There's so many. There's so many. There's so many times where, like I said before, he helped me out or us out in times of trial and struggle, and those memories are really great. There's picking chanterelles, picking mushrooms out in the Coast Range, and I remember the first time he took us out there and we drove down to the coast, and because he was in Lincoln City for a while. I went to these dive bars with him and drove home. We're like one of these dive bars in Lincoln City. So all those memories are really, we try to go out mushroom picking at least once a year to bring that back. I have to say, probably my best memory is not one. It's many joined into one, but just sitting around a dining room table and enjoying life and talking about the past and talking about the future. So there's not one, but that for me, whether it's in Jimi's backyard or on the porch of our house in Dundee or whatnot, that memory is special. I think the one thing that we forgot to mention too is we had Thanksgiving at our house after Jimi died that year. Remember?
Yeah.
And everyone drank too much. And it was very emotional.
Except me.
Yeah, that's right. I remember walking down with this big house in McMinnville and all these people asleep on the living room floor.
I wouldn't list that as one of the best memories.
No, it wasn't the best memories, but it was that was quite a memory. But I think, for me, it really is, and I think that once again, that's continued to this day. That's where I find Jimi, I think most of all, is when we sit around the table, whether it's just me and Cheryl and remember Jimi, or we sit around with Tad and Lee or Jason, or with Pascal, the fact that we're all still doing that now. How many years after Jimi's been gone is pretty amazing, and I think that's when I feel closest to Jimi.
What about a favorite memory of Jimi and Pascal together?
I don't know. I just remember me lecturing Jimi about seat belts and Pascal and that fucking Defender. Pascal at the house with the goat head.
Yeah, the goat head. That was, yeah, that's mine too.
I don't know, a lot of fun things with Paco out. The Dundee house was a really good place for kids, and that was always fun to be able to hang out with the two of them. Yeah, I can't remember.
And it was hard, I mean, Jimi was also going through a divorce or went through a divorce at that time, and, custody, and that was something, at least for our group, I mean, that was pretty novel. Not, our parents are divorced and whatnot, but to have, I think he was probably the first person.
Well, we were getting married and he was getting divorced, so we were all in different places there.
But for me, it's got to be, so we used to do this harvest party every year. And I think it was just at our house. We cooked, like I said, we cooked this animal. We had a lamb and a pig and a
pre-harvest,
pre-harvest party, and we'd invite all these interns and whomever. And one year we did it, we roasted this goat, which looks, I gotta say, it looks like a dog sort of when you're roasting it on a spit. And we had the goat head, and didn't we like put it on a steak or something like that? And Pascal was like, and he's wearing all camouflage, and he'd been rolling around playing Army in the Dust, and Jimi was so proud, that's my boy. and that was that day is definitely, high on my list. The other one would be, do you remember when we went mushroom hunting? Did we bring Theo?
Yeah,
it was
we
Jimi and
Theo
Jason.
in a bucket.
And Theo is our son, who's now 15. Jimi was holding in these white plastic buckets. We used, the 5-gallon buckets to go mushroom hunting, and he had Theo stuffed in the bucket and was holding him. Can't do that with Theo anymore. But,
no, 2 buckets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's got to be, the goat head day. It's got to be my favorite Pascal Jimi memory. It's funny that you said that too.
So the last question I have for you, why do you think the story of Jimi Brooks resonates with so many people and has resonated for so long?
I don't know. I don't know. And it's different for me than for other people. So I don't, to me it's an interesting question because I don't even really think of it as that. I think of Janie and I think of the winery, but.
We think of it as our best friend.
Yeah, I think of it as losing my friend. It's resonated with me because I miss my friend, and I miss having that person to talk to and to bounce ideas off of and to, chit chat about, whatever we were feeling for the day. And he was that person that, I could go to and he could call me and we can, talk for hours, which I can talk for hours anyway. So, but yeah, I don't know. I don't have a good answer to that.
I think for us, like you said, Cheryl, he was taken from us, or I shouldn't say taken, he left us at a time where our friendship was really intense. And when we were really looking towards the future. So for us, it's that huge loss that still resonates. But I think, Jimi wasn't he wasn't a god. He was a flawed guy. He had his issues, like all of us. And we all struggled through those issues together, and we shared a lot of the same, not the same issues, but we shared our issues with each other. But I think that there's certainly there's a cultural mythology ethos where someone who burned so bright and then leaves like that sort of, I don't know what it's called, an afterburn in your eyes, right? And I'm not saying, Jimi was this shooting star, go out, live fast, die young or whatever, but he lived large, and he lived life, and he lived life in a certain community. And I think that outside, the story resonates with people that maybe didn't even know him or knew him briefly because of that mythology that we have. And so that mythology of, you know, someone leaving us too young with so much to offer, he did have a lot to offer. So I think that there's something that resonates culturally, not only in the United States, but just around the world when that happens. But, you know, fortunately or unfortunately, Jimi also in some ways or those people become mythologized, that they maybe were, outside of people who knew them, they think they become bigger than they actually were. And once again, you know, Jimi was flawed like everybody else, like us, like whatnot. And so there's sometimes I feel like there's this mythic Jimi Brooks and the real Jimi Brooks. And it's like a Venn diagram. There's some overlapping of each for sure, but sometimes they're a little bit different. And we knew really the real, and I'm not saying this egotistically or arrogantly or anything like that, but Jimi was our best friend, and we really knew him. And so we knew the flawed Jimi, he knew the flawed us, he knew the flawed Sam, he knew the flawed Cheryl, but we knew the good as well. And that's, you know, that's an interesting thing to see is how the story, or I can't remember the question, but the mythology or the story
Resonance
moves forward. You know, if Jimi had not died, would there be this? You know, it'd be a different story, but would it be the same story? You know, I don't know. And it's the way it is. So it has. I think the story of Jimi and the story of Brooks and the story of Janie and the story of Pascal, obviously, there's a lot of a lot of that story has yet to be written, and it's been really amazing watching that story get written. So I don't know. It's an interesting. No one's ever asked, at least me, that question. So it's I don't know.
Well, and I think there's a difference between what resonates personally and what resonates in the world, you know. Mm-hmm. I think all of those, you know, you expect the unexpected. Like, that's not the way you would have expected Jimi to die. And Jimi would do big things and all of that. You don't expect, you know, something invisible. So I think those just fears of life, when you see somebody who lives large and then something silently happens, I think that's something that personally among the other, you know, the tighter group maybe resonates in a way. I mean, Jimi, even months before, had gotten in a motorcycle accident, and he said, that's it. As much as he loved motorcycles and he loved all of that, he was like, you know what? There was that blink where I possibly wouldn't have been here for Pascal, and I can't risk that, and I'm done, and I'm not gonna ride motorcycles again. So he was like, that was just way too scary. And now I sort of get what people are saying. And so you hear these like dialing back and reprioritizing and all of that, and then stuff like this happens. So I think there's that other thing, part that resonates among the tighter group, or just any person who's like, shit, and then this can happen. So it's probably not the most exciting answer to all of that, but I was thinking yeah.
I thought it was interesting. You said, you know, something that, you know, you couldn't. What killed Jimi was unseen, but for me, it's so appropriate. It was his heart. You know, I mean, he loved strongly, and you know, I think if you had asked Jimi, you know, how he would have preferred to go, that probably would have been up there. You know, as other than you know, I think he really struggled with his father, seeing that kind of progression of a disease, and you know, I mean, basically Jimi dying of a broken heart, in some ways, is a little appropriate. I mean, I know that's,
I don't know. I think that's, yeah. I wouldn't go there, but.
Yeah. He had a lot of heart.
Yeah.